Joining us for more about the inquiry and what lies ahead is Carolyn Bennett, the Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs. Thank you for being with us today.
Morning,
so on Friday, you met with some of these survivors and their families, and this is just the beginning, right, of this phase. What was that like?
It was very powerful, I think, because we know how important ceremony is. So to be in the circle with a lot of the women that have been leading the calls for an inquiry that with Elder Claudette Commanda, it was a very amazing day, and to have the revelation of the charges are laid to the alleged perpetrator of the death of Tina Fontaine in the middle of the day, and a moment of silence. I think everybody just really felt they'd come together at an important moment.
And so you've said that these meetings are designed to help you in terms of how you design this inquiry. Do you have any sense of how it will be set up and what it will entail, what it will involve?
Well, we've decided that we have to come in with a completely open mind. And so, like the Royal Commission on Aboriginal People, there was a pre-inquiry that sort of described what it would look like in order to meet its goals, both in the needs of the people, but also to get the results we need to prevent and to stop this tragedy. So we promise to meet with families first, but then we know that from the terms of reference to who should lead it, the importance of families, the importance of ceremony, all of these things will be part of each consultation as we go from community to from city to city and communities. But also we will put a consultation up online so that people who can't come to the meeting or who just want to share their observations. But also each meeting we will put a summary of what we've heard, so people can keep with us, and that may inform the comments that they want to make online or in person when we get to their community.
You don't have a timeline. You've said it's just going to take as long as it's going to take?
We're trying to find the balance. Yeah. We promise we're going to get this right. But we also know it's urgent to get on with the proper inquiry. So we're going to try and make sure that we can work as diligently as we can in the new year. And the provinces and territories will come together at their roundtable at the end of February. I hope that by then we'll be able to tell them a little bit about what we've heard and help them shape it as well.
There have been calls for the government to appoint an independent advisor. To make sure that the inquiry's terms of reference and to make sure it stays focused and impartial. What's your feeling about that?
Well, I think that in the past that ministerial representatives have been appointed. I think we felt right from the beginning that these families have waited long enough that they knew they wanted to speak directly to the ministers. And so I think we will have lots of advisors, independent advisors, as we come, the wise women who have come together, but also even the Human Rights Commissioner has offered her help if there's anything that we need from her. So I think that we can achieve the balance of even that, the independent versus minister, by making sure that we're open and transparent in every step of the way, such that when we actually it comes time to write the terms of reference and pick the commissioners, that people will know and be able to judge us that it's in keeping with what we heard.
Why do you think it is, the Prime Minister, why do you think, and for yourself, why do you think it is? It certainly appears to be a really important issue. Aboriginal and Indigenous Northern Affairs seems to be very important. Resetting this relationship seems to be such a priority. What do you think it is about who he is that he would want that to be such a big priority?
Well, I think in his speech to the Assembly of First Nations in July, we actually heard him use the words, the unfinished work of Confederation, that this is the fastest growing population, and it is a relationship that really went offside. So for him to put into the mandate letter of every single minister of the Crown The idea that this is the most important relationship to him and to Canada means that we will do our work with the recognition of rights, respect, cooperation, and a partnership that feels like a partnership.
And you've been wearing this T-shirt. It says "Honoring Our Sisters." I've seen you wear it a couple of times. This obviously is personal for you too. Tell me a little bit about that.
I wore this T-shirt. This one happens to be red, so I was able to wear it at many occasions throughout the campaign, and even on Canada Day this year. And the Sisters of Spirit pin, which is Grandmother Moon, which was the Native Women's Association logo for Grandmother Moon, who's supposed to look down on women at night, keep them safe. And I think whenever I was worried during the campaign, I would put this T-shirt on or put this pin. I wore the pin every day, and it showed me why we actually had to get this piece of work done to make sure that these families would finally have justice and support and the prevention in place that they know they need.
What do you say, though, to those that say, oh, another inquiry, while it will be important on one level in terms of the healing, in terms of getting some of these feelings and out into the open in a formal, proper way, there are others saying the systemic issues are really what need to be fixed?
We can do both things, and I think that in terms of housing and shelter space, but one of them that we have to get on with right away is the one in the clip from Commissioner Paulson. That this is a very serious problem in terms of racism and sexism in policing, and we are going to have to get going at that as well. But you know that it's only when people testify under oath that we heard those stories during the Opal Commission. We can do better, and we will.
Okay, since you mentioned that, I want to play an exchange that we touched on a little earlier that happened this week. It's between Grand Chief Doug Kelly as well as RCMP Commissioner Bob Paulson. Have a listen.
We encounter racism every single day. Some of the worst racists carry a gun, and they carry a badge authorized by you, Commissioner Paulson, to do the work. We need you to confront racism in the ranks.
I understand that there are racists in my police force. I don't want them to be in my police force. I would encourage you all, though, to have confidence in the processes that exist, up to and including calling me if you are having a problem with a racist in your jurisdiction or any other problem.
It may not surprise people that there are racists in the RCMP, but to hear the commissioner publicly say, I know there are racists in my, and to basically say, I'm offering up my personal tip line if you want to call me directly. Was that a moment?
Well, I think the candor was hugely important because everybody knows it's true. So for the commissioner to say so and to say that these people have no place in his police force, I think is important. You can't fix things till you admit it's the truth. And so I thought that was really important.
Is there anything the government can do about that to assist the RCMP in rooting out racists and finding them and making sure that they are no longer in the force?
Well, I think that Minister Goodale, it will be very involved in the inquiry as well, and that we know that we will hear stories throughout the inquiry, which will unfortunately shine light in that dark corner.
I want to ask you a couple more things. I know it's busy for you. We've had inquiries into Indigenous peoples before, right? For instance, there was the 1996 Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples, and there are questions about how effective they've been in the past. I know I was asking you a little bit about that earlier, but there is this sense we've had these commissions over and over again. We've just had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We're going to get that final report, and I'll ask you about that in a second. But then you hear stories about there's no running water on reserves. There's racism on the reserves. There aren't opportunities on reserves. There are suicides. So you just hear about there's problems with policing. So we've talked about them before for decades and decades and decades, and there's just this perception out there that things don't change. How are you going to be part of a government that actually brings about real change?
Well, I think what's exciting for me is that it's a whole of government approach. That the budget in my department isn't sufficient to fix all these, but whether it's post-secondary grants for students or natural resources that Dr. Philpott on health and healthcare, and of course having Jody Wilson-Raybould as the Minister of Justice is just this most extraordinarily amazing opportunity for Canada. And so we're all going to work on this together. But again, it's exciting and daunting to see the optimism within First Nations, Inuit and Métis people that they actually want to help us get this right. And I think it's that we have to just put one foot in front of the other and get it done. It is an exciting time.
So on Tuesday, I was mentioning the Truth and Reconciliation Commission will present its final report into the history and legacy of Canada's residential school system. The Prime Minister has said he wants to implement all 94 recommendations. But are there priorities? Are there key priorities within those 94 recommendations that need to be implemented faster than others?
Well, Andrew, it touched me that in their organization of their calls to action, that they put children first. And I think that when we look at missing and murdered Indigenous women, when we look at problems in schooling and economic, that the fact that children aren't getting the best possible start in life, and that the whole problem with child welfare, of children being ripped from their families in greater numbers than at the height of residential schools, that, you know, to me that's where I want to start. But I must say that having the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People fully implemented across all government departments, all provinces and territories, the mayors, the private sector, for everybody to understand that. But I guess my job as the Minister of Reconciliation is to make sure that the 96% of Canadians not from Indigenous background have the same opportunities I've had as an MP and as a minister to have new friends who are First Nations, Inuit, Métis, who are so smart and have such amazing vision for their people. That will be, I think, how I judge whether we've done the reconciliation properly, is if all of us are able to just really understand the people who were here first and their rights, but the tremendous opportunity is for Canada to get this right finally.
Minister, appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is Carolyn Bennett, Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.